Thank you.
Time in the year.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You're the only guy, huh? But it's recording, right? Yeah. Okay, very good. You're the only guy, huh? Huh? Yeah, it's good. Excellent.
How was Shabbos? I'm in Lakewood. Where's that? Right?
Lakewood is a qualities. So plenty of there.
As it will,
Really?
was, never same as here.
What?
When New Jersey was, now it's the same as here. Oh, it's not the same, it's getting there. It's getting there.
Maybe in some cases.
Some places maybe not. Newer neighborhoods maybe not.
The Jewish neighborhood is plenty.
It's always like that. You ever found somewhere it's different? No. If it's not yet as expensive, it will be. In time.
Very too expensive. Did you get it under $900? Well, when I bought it in January. You're gonna be there? How much? When did you buy it? January. And you were there for Pesach? Yeah, Morocco. No, Israel. No, but we're all going very soon, you know. What? It's not the problem. Just 2 days. Everything's paid only, but how much did you pay in January? Yeah, we bought it. We bought the bar. It takes about 2 hours. Yeah, I'll be there for the day. Oh, that's great. What do you go? They give you credit. Okay. So thank you. You're going one way. We were going to go for Sukkot. I always wanted to go. I wish. We spoke to the person for the whole month. He says, you know, but I don't have a place. They may not be coming to. Makes more sense.
Good morning, beautiful morning in Chodesh Elul. The king is in the field. Definitely a Yom Kotzav Amalach Maruba. We have a lot to do. Chodesh Elul and a lot to do today. I once told a story in Beis Menachem Mendel. I told a story about the Rebbe. There was a surgeon in Los Angeles. He used to get up very early in the morning to go to the hospital. He didn't want to wake up his wife. He was busy doing. He'd come very early to the hospital. It's dark outside. He used to get up quietly and walk into. They had a walk-in closet in their house. In the bedroom, he get dressed quietly. He would tiptoe out of the bedroom. Wouldn't turn on the light. Still a mensch. And one morning, it was dark. He walks quickly into the to his closet, and boom! He must have he had a pole or something he didn't notice, and poked straight into his eye.
Wow.
What happened?
In his eye.
What happened?
A pole that was sticking. He walked straight. He banged his eye into a pole. With the hospital, they told him they don't think they could save his eye.
He was a doctor.
He was a doctor, a surgeon. You know, loss of the eye meant not only the loss of eye, it meant loss of everything. Whole
career.
His career.
At least that's a surgeon.
Yep. So the shliach wrote, called to Maskidus, asked for a bracha, and they got an answer from the Rebbe that he should be very medayik to make sure to use wine for Kiddush and Havdalah.
What? Good one.
I don't know wine. I don't remember because I'm here. There is a thing from Chazal that you lose a little bit of your eyesight, that you get it back. The Kiddush of the Shimshi, some of the Rishonim said it meant by looking at the candles when you make Kiddush. That's what the minhag is. That you say Yom HaShishi. There's a minhag to look at the candles. Okay. Baruch Hashem, his eyesight came back and he was healed. They had a surgery and Baruch Hashem was Matzliach, and his eyesight completely came back and he was able to go back to work.
Rabbi, do you mind? Well, you could learn.
Sure. What we should.
It's my,
L'zeicha nishmas that Noach ben Yaakov David Akoin. Today is the yard site.
today your father who?
Your grandfather.
Oh,
Okay, very good. So after this was a Shabbos. This was right before we moved here to this building. It was on East 17. So 3 people went over and said, "Rabbi, how do you know the story is true?" I forget the name. He started to make Kiddush with wine, and then they did a surgery in his eye and was successful. And his eyesight came back. Oh, so after davening, 3 guys came over. Akiva Weigel, there's another 2, I forget their names, and they said, "How do you know the story is true?" I don't know. I heard the story. So one of them said, "This is a true story as my father."
Wow.
So it was freed. So I don't remember the other 2 who it was, but there were 3 friends. They used to daven here. So I would like to present a shaila. I spoke about this a week or 2 weeks before Pesach, and at the time I said that we're going to revisit this, which is grape juice good for Kiddush and Havdalah? The reason I'm mentioning it today is because yesterday we were talking about adding water to wine. If you're allowed to, you're not allowed to. We were speaking about it. Kedem company seems that most of the runs of grape juice they do put water into it. So someone asked about we should get back to talking about wine, about grape juice. Could you use grape juice? So we talk about grape juice for Kiddush and Havdalah. And this week's Pasha talks about Kedem Reyacha, so we'll talk about this. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Reish Ayin Beis, the Machaber says, and it's a Gemara from Basra, Yayin Megite Mekatchen Allah, B'Soichet Adam Eshkol Shel Anovim V'Omed Kiddush Yayin. That the person could take a cluster of grapes, squeeze it with his hands into a cup, and he could drink it. Well, you can make Kiddush, you can make a very pregofen. Now you can't squeeze it on a Shabbos.
Oh.
You squeeze it before Shabbos. So bottom line is that there is the contemporary poskim have a dispute about this. The Minchas Yitzchak, the previous Av Bezin of the Cheredis, had a very lenient policy about grape juice and a very lenient policy about putting water into grape juice. He allowed to put 1 to 5 water into grape juice that had a hechsher from the Eida Cheredis with a sticker Kosher Kiddush Arba Koises.
That is because you're running short, you can fill up the cup, or in general, even if you had enough grape juice.
I don't want to talk right now about the putting in the water. I spoke about it yesterday. Conclusion yesterday was that whenever you have a bottle of wine on your table, you shouldn't even put in 1 drop of water because it's not our derech to do. But I just. It's like I'm bringing it up because in the Minchas Yitzchak Chelek Ches over here, Siman Yudalad, he set the policy for the Eida Cheredis, and they give a hechsher on grape juice with a sticker Kosher Kiddush Arba Koises, and they allow the factories to put in water too. I don't want to go into the water issue, but anyway, he also the Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach agreed, and the basic svara is that we say Seichet Adam Eshkol Shel Anovim. Yain Megitas Kosher Kiddush. So if it was 1 minute Kosher Kiddush, why should it later become Kosher Kiddush? Because they pasteurize it or they do whatever other things, put in chemicals in order not to allow the fermentation process to begin. As I mentioned, there's a process there's a trick to make that the grape juice shouldn't ferment. That's why grape juice for hundreds of years was not such a popular item. Although, as you'll see in a minute, that in the days of the Rishonim, there was grape juice. We think there wasn't. George Welch thinks that he's the one who invented grape juice. And he came up with the technique of how to cook the wine, the grapes, and so on in a way, and put in chemicals, sulfites, that it shouldn't ferment. True, he made a fortune of money off his process, but as you'll see soon, that grape juice was around for a while. So the question is grape juice a better priagofen, and is it good for Kiddush and Havdalah? Many contemporary boys can say yes. I saw in a sefer, Shvus Yitzchok, he says that he asked that Rav Elyasher told him he's not masking. He says, so what was wine? But right now, after you pasteurize it, it can never be, they can't ferment and become wine. It's not wine. When the Gemara said you could squeeze a cluster of grapes into a cup, and that's wine, that's regular grapes. If you would have left it there for a few days, it would start fermenting. But the grape juice that can't ferment is not by the priagof, it's not good for Kiddush and Havdalah, unless he said that Rav Elyashiv, if it was made in a way that it could ferment. So the Kedem company claims that if you open a bottle of Kedem and you don't put it in the fridge and you put it in the right conditions, it's going to ferment and become wine. That's what they say. Now, Reb Sholem Mordechai Rubashkin was here for a Fabrengen, and he's told us a story. He said they used to get little bottles of Kedem grape juice for Kiddush, and in jail.
Yeah.
And they tried to make trouble for him, and they sent the guards took a bottle of grape juice that he had, and they sent it away to a lab, and they determined that there was alcohol in it, and they were going to punish him for that. And no joke, the Kedem company got involved, and they sent a petition saying that it's 100% grape juice. It's just that they have to, the way they put in the chemicals, the process they do is in a way that after you open the bottle, if you don't put it in the fridge, it could ferment and it will become alcohol, but it really is not his fault. He didn't buy or do any. Anyway, it was just a funny story that he told. But Metoichat Bodim, you see that it might be true what Kedem claims. Kedem claims that if you will leave the bottle out of the fridge in the right conditions, it will ferment and will become alcohol. So that's the basic argument. Is it that if it was wine, it's good enough, or it has to be that even now that it could become fermented and become wine again?
Maybe they get the solar in the first place, but it has to be able to become alcohol.
So because the Gemara says that the mile of yayin that it gets a brocha michedus because it's so the mesameach. So grape juice is not mesameach.
But the yayin also.
So, but it Kollel lebila, the Gemara says ain't bila makevas boy. That and that
my kids see grapes.
why? Because I think Rav Elyashiv has a very strong point. He says regular grapes has a koyach to it. In the grapes there is a koyach that it could have fermented, but these grapes that were ruined by a process. You disagree? Okay, listen. Yeah, you don't have to agree with him. Okay. So let's read inside the second paragraph. The Beis Yosef in the beginning of Siman Beis says like this: Kosher Berches Chaim. Berches Chaim says, "Ala Yerupi mevarach lav shakol b'pashin." Yerupi is shakol. Yerupi. What's Yerupi? Go to the store and ask him for a bottle of Yerupi.
That's a good name for the new brand.
For the new brand, Yerupi. Kiddush b'shut Knesset Gedolah. The Knesset Gedolah says, Inyan Yerupi u'shedorchem anovim v'achad richosem asimim b'tirish offer loven yedua shor achas o yoisema. But kedei sheyitzu layayin yitzu mehem aheda v'yamed b'mesikusa. After they crush the grapes, they put in a certain type of sand. V'achach mechamem moise v'chdei she'eni atzalat boy. גם השירבית מסימן עופר בתירש תזה מוסקל ידם קיור, במקן כל שכם מהירופי, דבין בזה בין בזה, אויסה עופר גרם שתירש לא יוסה יין, אלא ימה במסיקוסה, לכן דייתם הסכמס לברכם לשעקל, כמדומש לי שבקוש תקח מברכם לו, כיוון שבחוץ שעקל אין מקדשם לו, וזה נראה לי פושט, נראה לי דייתם. So he says that basically the Yerupi, the way he describes it, sounds like grape juice. That they cook it, they put a certain sand, they cook it, and it can never ferment, and therefore the bracha shakol. That's what it sounds like from the Knesset Gedolah. The other hand, the Knesset Gedolah has a sefer Shailas Tshuva Boyechai, and he brings over there from the a tshuva from the Ran. What is the Ran? The Ran, right? Next line, the Kosher of the Tshuva Soran. Shailah be'eretz azoy seregilim ha'yishmoelim lokachas anovim By the way, even though the Ran lived in Spain at that time, there was still Arabs that lived in Spain, and until there was many kingdoms in Spain, and the south of Spain was many Arab kingdoms, and all of Spain there were Christians. There were also Muslims there until the Christians managed to get rid of the Muslims. So the Ran writes, "Shalta ba'aretz hazoy seregilam ha'yishmaelam lakachas hanovim nesimim aleim ofi yedu shachas yoyse ma'at koidem drichotzim v'tashit shalayin yoyse me'am v'yamam sekus v'achkich derchles v'vashles hayayin bishul yofat sheta'ova v'nasa kein dvash v'koidem noise dvas." It's a slightly different process, but they both have sand and cooking. But they put the sand on the grapes, then they crush the grapes, and then they take it and they cook it.
That's like must.
And
Sounds like must.
yeah,
When you cook and the water evaporates,
right,
it becomes like a thick thing.
right,
When they want
exactly.
to ship it from one place to another, they do it like that, and then they add water.
Yeah, bidiyuk. So that's probably why they do it. Exactly. Ishmaelim are not allowed to drink alcohol, so they wanted to have a drink from the grape. So the Ishmaelim figured out how to make grape juice. That's probably the reason.
But the Ishmaelis are not to prove that they tried not to drink.
Today in Saudi Arabia, for example, in these countries, is it permissible to have grape juice? Uh-huh.
And the alcohol, it would be a very good idea to ship
Right. If it's illegal, they should show them the Shuvah Saran that it says that their ancestors had a minhag to have grape juice. Kever shenimshach lagas elaboy v'asa yain nesach migito shel goy ve'en dechitos v'asa yain nesach b'magoy shel goy ve'en detichos ubishuloi moitzi oisem yisurei. That's what the Ran writes. So the minhag it says there's a steer over here between the Knesset Havdalah and the two things he says. First he says that it's not wine, and then he says the grape juice is wine. And therefore he has a Kiddush. He says that the Birkei Yosef writes Erupa is congealed wine like jelly. So he says, what is it called? Must.
Well, take a bite, second that.
Must.
No,
it's not
congealed.
Yeah.
So he says, Sevensach, if it's liquidy as a din of wine, if it's congealed, then it doesn't have the din of wine. That's the Kiddush of the Minchas Yitzchak. Okay, look, if he likes his Kiddush, I mean, otherwise I would have answered the contradiction in a very simple way. There's two parts of the process of making grape juice. One is they used to put in the sand, which I guess that white sand had some type of chemical reaction with the grapes, and they also cooked it. So and the Ran was said that what happened was the Jews used to crush the grapes, and then they allowed the goyim to process it up to the cooking point. So he said it became yain nesach because the goyim were handling the juice before they cooked it, so it wasn't yet grape juice. So I don't see any contradiction in the two piskei dinim of the Knesset Havdalah. If the goy touches it before it was cooked, it's yain nesach. But after it's cooked, it's shahakol and it's yayin. So I don't see any contradiction in the Knesset Havdalah. What I see is that the Knesset Havdalah holds that grape juice, because there was a process that went on to not allow it to ferment, it's shahakol. I see not everyone agrees with Knesset Havdalah. The Birkei Yosef says the Erupi means congealed. I see that congealed could be, I see the difference. Congealed, as they say, that doesn't have the chashivas of wine. It's called dvas. The Arabs call it dvas. It's like a jelly. It's something else. So it lost the chashivas of wine. But if it was grape juice, it would be better briagafa. But the Knesset Havdalah himself seems to hold that grape juice is shahakol. So we see that there are already earlier poiskim.
That shows that even if they did it from the beginning, it was not a problem.
Well, it depends which tshuva. In the Ran says it's yain nesach. Okay, but the other tshuva with the Knesset Gdola, he says that if you make something, you put sand and then you cook it, it's shahakol, and there's no kiddush, and there's no Havdalah, and there's nothing from it.
That sounds like even if the God did it from the beginning, even if at a certain time was crushed.
No, that's not the way I'm reading that on. I read that on like this. Shalta Baritz says, they put sand on the grapes. And then they crush it in the mavashel. As soon as the juice was crushed and it turned into yain esach, later that you're going to cook it, how are you going to take it? It's already yain esach. Now you went and you boiled it in a pot. It's mashma from the Ran. It's mashma from the Ran that if the Jew boiled it and then the guy touched it, it would not be yain esach. Forget. It sounds to me that the Ran is a raya against the minchas yitzchak. Instead of bringing a raya to himself, he brought a raya from a Ran against himself. It sounds to me that the Ran saying because the guy touched it before it was cooked, it's yain esach. It's mashma. Had the guy touched it after it's cooked, it would have not been yain esach.
According to the Rana, at what point does it become yain esach? Does it go?
As I just said, and up to the process of cooking it, it becomes yain esach. As soon as they finish cooking it, and now it turned into grape juice, the bracha is shahakol. It's not good for Kiddush. It's not good for Havdalah, and it can't be yain esach.
So what I mean is, we pinpoint. If you go to the fruit market, then the guy is handling grapes. He's handling all kinds of fruits and vegetables. That doesn't make it us. It's us. At what point?
If he squeezes the grapes in a cup,
The squeezing. That's what I was looking for. The squeezing.
if he squeezes it,
Rabbi, when I was in the army
Mhm.
in 1972, in Sinai, we went a group to a Bedouin tent.
yeah,
The Bedouin, they are known, they have achnasat ofen. We don't eat meat and this, but just fruit and vegetables. So one of the guy came over, he said, I just made wine. And he brought it over. So another guy told him, the Jewish people, they don't drink wine from us. He knows something, not nesach, but we don't drink. So he took it out. He gave us only the fruit and vegetable. I remember that.
Wow.
What does the Nazarite do to pay something? He can't have grape juice.
You can't.
Is there a substitution?
Nothing. Okay, so let's summarize. Huh? Yeah.
Special to his opinion. So we should be something that doesn't need to be. Yeah. He's not gonna he's afraid of saying that grape juice. Yeah. That's what he told me. He didn't tell me the details. I didn't know the numbers.
Right.
Right.
It could be he didn't think it's a gofen either. They usually go together. So the bottom line is, it does seem that there were earlier poskim that knew about grape juice, and there was a discussion: the grape juice agofen or not. Anyway, I think the bottom line is that today everyone is noyeg to make body agofen on grape juice and to use it for Kiddush in the four koshes. And as I said, Rabbi, the best proof is Shalom Mordechai Rubashkin, who sat here a few years ago on a Fabrengen on Chamisha B'Shvat, and said that he had a problem when he was in jail because they claimed that he has alcohol. So it seems that this is mamish kosher v'yosher. The thing is like this: the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, when he brings this din, look at the next line, the next paragraph, right over here. The Alter Rebbe writes, "Yain megita mekatchen alo v'soichet od meshkol shel namer alav kiddush hayoyim mekoma kemitzvah min hamufcher v'yain yoshen shemeshubach yoyzer." That you should use yain yoshen. Even though you could use Kiddush and Yain Chodesh, which is grape juice, it's a mitzvah and a muvcher. And I would say that that's maybe why the story that Rebbe doesn't prove anything of what the Rebbe might hold hapidin.
So you do a tova ametiv, it's more yain shubah.
I would say if you started with grape juice, then you're going to have other wine, then you can make a tova meitiv.
What's the meat of Yashin? Yasha.
Yoshan means fermented, not that. Right. In this case, it means that it was fermented and there's alcohol in it.
No, I think it's not me. So it's well known that it's wrong, even if it ferments.
Right, right, it's good, right.
$100 bottles.
Right. Because some of them age even well in the bottle.
No, in a barrel, the bottle that won't.
But it seems that there are some wines they claim that they even in the bottle they age well. Anyway, the bottom line is we see that there's a hidden mitzvah, even if grape juice is 100% kosher for Kiddush Arba Koiches, that there's a hidden mitzvah. So there's someone in the shul that actually came here the other day and said that he went to the Amshin of a Rebbe in Yerushalayim, and he asked him for a bracha for a certain thing, and he told him if he's makabel on himself to use only wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, then he'll have a bracha for that thing, and he taki accepted it upon himself, and it worked.
There's another thing that grapes is the way the Kevin does it.
Yeah, I'm never that, not the butter of that guy.
Sweet.
Who want-
Except they
who want-
say proudly, no added sugar, but they take most vas and they add it to the wine. So now, in other words, so if according to the Ran that vas is not wine, so this is as if they added waters. Okay,
Right.
so the fact that that has alcohol, you have to find out if the alcohol comes because of the gas or because of the real,
Right.
the part of wine. Yeah,
It's a good question. Also, what's the proportion? They say that the roiv is yain. Are they counting the dvas as part of the? They say roiv is grape juice. Is it the roiv? Is it like 51% grape juice and the must is 7% and the rest is water, or is it this 45% grape juice and then they have 6% must? You know what I mean? That's yeah. So two questions and your question. That's a good question. It's a good question. Okay. So another question. What's the pshat? Someone asked. Minhag Chabad is that before you go to a Kever tzaddik to go to the mikveh and not to eat, but to drink after you go visit the Kever tzaddik.
Only a tzaddik, not a regular.
Yeah.
Not a relative?
Yeah. And that's the mock of this minhag is connected to an unbelievable story that happens to do with the unbelievable story about the Baal Shem Tov Sefer Torah. You hear, Benja? But I'm going to keep you in suspense until next week or the week after to tell the story, just because the time is short.
People go to the oil, they go to the mikveh first, they don't.
Yeah.
Chabad, they go to
I
mikveh.
go to a plak at night.
No.
I go to a plak at night, doesn't eat all day.
Listen.
Don't eat from the school.
Let me explain. And if I can explain, you'll understand.
Okay.
So, as I said, there's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and again, I'm not going to go into the whole story today, but the Rebbe Rashab went to Mezhebush, and there's a story with him and the Sefer Torah, the Baal Shem Tov, the special Sefer Torah. And then in B'toich Advarim, in the story, he writes that the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that his father was fasting, went to the mikveh, and he fasted, and he went to the oil and the tzion of the Baal Shem Tov. So in the Rebbe has a footnote. The Rebbe writes, you can read inside here. Yesh michtav kvoid Kiddush admor marat shebeis bikur kvoid Kiddush admor Rashab b'Mezhebush Tavo b'mikveh terem alachos b'tzin shabashem to Kosher sham hoyt kvoid Kiddush adoni mori v'Rebbe Arav HaKodesh yispal mincha yamar lebeis atfilah misham lebeis achayim lahechel tzion merena b'Shem to bi sham atsham ucheretz v'yachzol lebeis knesset merena b'Shem to yispal arvis kshu yosh b'tainis. There's a footnote there from the Rebbe. The Rebbe writes, "Sorchin im zeh rol larav al nogas larav. Ki pam shemaite mit kvoid kedushes at moira kereni kaporas mishkava maharatz shakoydem alicha al tzien ve'oil noigim she'enochem aval shoyse." That's what the Rebbe writes. So then the Rebbe writes then that loy kol alicha shavas. Not every halicha is the same thing. So sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. Okay. What's the issue over here? What's the issue? What are we talking about over here? What's the issue? So the issue is like this. In the Luach Dvar Yom B'Yom, he brings like this from Svarim. It says, "Nezorim shalei lechel kodem alochel lebeis alma. V'yesh noegim litin kodem alochim shaloi yichatz v'sham eil asher leim nema So let me explain. There is a little bit of a tension over here, kilo, between nigla and nister, and between two things that are minhag Yisrael. It's irrelevant very much now because it's brought in the Shulchan Aruch Siman Tavkuk Peyalach from the Ramah that there's a minhag erev, there's a special segula erev Rosh Hashanah to go to Beis HaChaim, and as in Lubavitch, the minhag was over the years. The Rebbe used to go with all of Siddim, used to go to Friedrich Rebbe Tzin, and this is a Allah Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so now here, what's the tension here? In the one hand, there's a issa in the Torah of a Shalom Esim. Chazal say it's a person that fasts and he goes and he sleeps on the grave and then he starts talking to the dead. That was the minhag of the goyim. When you fast and you sleep in the Beis HaKvoros, you get so crazy you think you're talking to the dead, but they're talking to you.
Yeah.
The answer.
They're answering you, yeah, and you hear the answer. So we want to stay far away, even though if you're fasting and you're going to daven at a Kever, it doesn't look like you're lon al chorus. I mean, you didn't do the full thing. Well, you want to be very careful that it shouldn't look like Darkei Amoidi. On the other hand, it says in the Zohar in Parshas Achrei Mos, and in Lubavitch it's brought in the minor losh that we say that the Zohar says that the lo yehevun lo yesun hacha. That the Zohar says that when you go to Mispal Makivit Tzadikim that you should fast. So you should or you shouldn't. It's sort of like a tension between Nigla and Nister. So the Sefer Luach Bayern B'Yem, it brings from Svardim that don't eat a big meal, eat a little te'ima. That's what he says.
If you're going at night,
Now, so one second. So the Friedrich Rebbe, I think, wanted to make up short. The Friedrich Rebbe wanted to make up short. So, on the one hand, we don't want to fast. On the other hand, we don't want to eat. So he made up short. If you drink and you don't eat, so you have your cake and you can eat it too. You couldn't mamish eat it, but you can drink it. So you can have your cake and drink it too. So you have alamilas. In the one hand, you did what the Zohar said that you fasted. The other hand, you're not like a marivatz mevalom beis hakvoros. But the question here is, we know b'chol Torah kula that the shtiya b'chlal achila, like Lagabi Yom Kippur. We just learned it. We're starting to learn the Tuesday night shir. We're doing as a achona for Yom Kippur. I'm giving now the last paydik in the Maseches Yuma. We're doing the halachas of Yom Kippur. We right away. The Mishnah starts the last Mishnah Maseches Yuma, and the Gemara says achilu shtiya b'chlal achila. Shtiya and achila is the same thing. So what was the trick that the Friedrich Rebbe came up with? The truth is, we do see a little bit in halacha, like you look at the Mishnah Berurah, talk about Simon Peites, person's hard for him in the morning. He needs to have a coffee maybe in the morning, or he talks about a fast. The minhag is not to have before to the Megillah to eat. He says if someone's weak, should have a little bit of coffee. We're talking also about the person went to sleep before a fast. He woke up. He didn't make it tonight. But I think I have here at Ayah from this week's Parsha, a very beautiful Raya. What's the beautiful Raya is like this? There's a mitzvah in the Torah that if your worker works for you, you have to be compassionate to the worker. A worker is working for you from 4 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He's working in the farm. He's working hard. He's working with the grapes, and he's with the holes in his pants and holes in his shoes, and he's a poor man. And he's processing all these grapes, the delicious, juicy grapes, and he can't even taste one grape. It's very difficult. The same thing, the potter, the potter is working on the grain all day, and she can't even eat because he put a muzzle on the mouth. So the Torah says you're not allowed to do that. Torah says, that Rashi says that with the poilakos of medaber, not talking about if me and you decide to rip the gate and go into someone's keren. Obviously, we're talking about a person who's a worker, And the Torah says that v'achalto anovim kenafshecha savecha, that he could eat as many grapes as he wants. You can't say a word. You're not allowed to tell him not to eat. Now, Apidin, while he's working with his hands, there's a lot of conditions. This is not a din. I mean, like every mitzvah in the Torah that has hundreds and hundreds of details, including the fact that you could have the workers come to your house and give them a very heavy breakfast and a very heavy lunch and a very heavy dinner. So this way they have no room in their stomach. They'll eat 1 or 2 grapes and they can't eat anymore. You're allowed to do that. But you're not allowed to tell them no eating grapes. They could eat as much grapes as they want. One of the things that the Gemara learns, one of the details in halacha is achalta v'loy moitzitz. Achalta v'loy moitzitz. Achalta v'loy moitzitz. He's allowed to take a grape and chew it and swallow it, but he can't take a grape and squeeze it and throw out the pulp. It's also to do that. And no, because there's an extra word, v'ochalta. But what's the problem if he does that? So, balabatish. The Eivishter says, look at the spirit of the law. Before we get to now, we're going to go talk about the lumps. The Eivishter says, have compassion on the worker and be a mensch. How could he work for so many hours and processing grapes and he can't taste 1 grape? Let him eat. How many? What should the Torah say? 7 grapes? 10 grapes? Let him eat whatever. You don't want him to eat a lot of grapes? Give him a good meal, fill up his belly, but you can't tell him not to eat the grapes. But the Torah turns to the worker and says, you don't be a pig. Don't sit there and take the juice and squeeze it, spit the pulp out. The whole floor is full of grapes. The balabas comes. Don't be a chazer, the Torah says. You're hungry. You want to make a bird priya eitz and eat a couple, eat a cluster of grapes and make a main gimel when you finish. Don't sit there squeezing the grapes and throwing out the pulp. The chain. Don't do that. Okay. What we said now, this pshat is true. Pshat. But now let's go to the Rogachover. There also everything in Torah is also halacha. The Rogachover says, he says, Sorechiu, Ish L'Ayin. Remember the words. Ish L'Ayin. He says, what's the pshat when the Torah said this? Is the pshat that the Torah is saying that you should know that when you're juicing it, that's called shtiya. That's not called achila, that's called shtiya. The Torah only said, v'achalta, you're allowed to eat. But v'loi moitzes, because moitzes is shtiya. Or he says, maybe the other way of learning it is that there's 2 types of eating it. One by chewing it, and one by juicing it. And the Torah says, this type of achila you're allowed to do, and that type of achila you're not allowed to do. And he brings...
The reverse wouldn't be mutter, where you throw out the juice and just eat the pulp. I mean, you're still wasting. So I would think that it goes both ways.
If you learn pshat, the way we just said. But yeah.
If the deal comes from the word ochalto but not moitzes, that means that Chachamim understood that this is called
achila, and that's called shtiya.
Opposed to something else.
I know that's the posh pshat, but Rogachover has a chikir about this, and I found that the Rebbe Akiva Eger brings from a Pri Chodosh also that he holds that achalta v'lei moitzes doesn't mean that moitzes is called shtiya. Moitzes is really called achila. So this is the question. Moitzes, when a person takes a fruit and puts it in his mouth and he squeezes it, is that called achila or that's called shasiya? The Pri Megadim brings the Rebbe Akiva Eger brings the Simon Reish Daled that's called achila. That's called achila. It's just that the Torah says that type of achila you're not allowed to have.
I can be the sabbat
Because there is waste. Because there is waste.
It's a problem.
Good. That's a good question. But the Torah says you're not allowed to squeeze. He has to eat it. But the question is, when the Torah says v'achalta v'la moitzes, is the Torah saying when you're moitzes you're drinking, or the Torah says moitzes is also a form of achila? But that's not what you're allowed to do.
The Torah doesn't want it to waste.
That's the spirit. So that's the question that Rogachover asked. Akiva Eger brings from a tshuva, from the Pri Chodosh, an obscure tshuva. Akiva Eger got a lot of svarim, but I have more svarim than a Akiva Eger. I have the Oitza Chochma. So it's
He was the Otzar
huh?
He was the Otzar.
He was the Oitza Chochma, exactly. But the difference is that the difference between me and the Rebbe Akiva Eger is very simple. That if I need to find the bottom of Shabbos, I'm stuck. I can't do anything on Shabbos. And Rebbe Akiva Eger was able to access information also on Shabbos. I found that tshuva at the end of one of the Swan of the Pri Chodesh. It was a little bit of a headache to find it, but I found it. Again, the Yitzhak Chachmi, you find everything. But yeah, he says it's his opinion. That's what he holds, that if you put, say you take an orange, cut it into slices, and you put it in your mouth, that the bracha is ha'etz, because that's called achila. The Alter Rebbe says no. The Alter Rebbe says befedish and that's shahakol. So we see that there is a machloikis. Moitzitz called
What's shackle? Moitzes.
moitzitz shahakol. So, but I'm not going to go in so much to that.
Get that little bit of the pulp. It's already
I don't know.
aged, or has to be all the pulp.
It has to be. I don't know. It's a good question. But you see here that we have here, so we have a chiddush. Here's the chiddush. If you say that the Torah says like the simple shot, the way you said achalta v'lemoitz means you have to eat, and if you're moitzitz, that's called drinking. So we see that the Torah was machadish that in certain dinim, achila v'shtia are not the same. The Torah says grapes. You want achila? No problem. Shtia? No way. So we see that achila shtia, even though lagabi Yom Kippur and lagabi many mitzvahs, achila shtia is the same thing. Like the Gemara says, shtia b'chlal achila, but in other things, shtia and achila are not exactly the same thing. So we see that was the brilliant thought of the Friedrich Rebbe. He said, if you want to do both minhagim of the Zoyar and the Nigla, so don't eat but drink. So you have Beit Miles. The Rebbe is writing.
Oranges, not just
Yeah.
water.
Yes.
But maybe not grape juice.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So now the Rebbe writes in this Haora that when he heard the story that the Rebbe Rashab didn't eat altogether, it was a surprise to him. He said maybe that was a psayoytzim and a klal. Now I want to talk about going today to the oil on Tzion of Kodesh of the Rebbe. And obviously, this minhag is not an ironclad thing. It's someone that wants to go in the morning, and there's no thing that you have to chas v'sholom fast the whole day. A person has a tzora and he wants to go to the Tzion Kodesh and be mispalel. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to eat. Just someone that wants to do this. Someone that wants to do the full 9 yards, wants to do, the Zoya says, the Lord Klas Taniser, that you should fast. So not every time you go to the Kever Tzad you're going to fast. But if you want to, you have a problem. You can't. Because Apinigla looks like Lon Doirish Alamesa. So therefore, the happy medium, according to the Friedrich Rebbe, is drink and don't eat. Again, it doesn't mean every time you go to Kever Tzad you're not allowed to eat. If you want to do what the Zoya says, the law, that you should go with a fast, so drink and don't eat. That's it. Simple. That's the brilliant pshara that the Friedrich Rebbe had. That even though usually in the Torah shtia and achil is the same thing, but in some things shtia and achil are not the same. So he said, drink, don't eat.
Also, important thing so that you cannot be considered the way someone became, but when you open a Kever, you don't talk to the dead person, you talk to God.
Right.
It shouldn't look like the whole thing is.
Huh?
Not that you're not doing it.
I hope not. I hope not.
He says it looks.
I hope not.
The whole thing is that looks like that. Not that you're doing it. It looks like.
Some people actually do it, they talk to the.
No, but if they're going to say the Zoyar and Parshat Acharei Mois, they'll never make that mistake. If they're going to read that Zoyar that talks all about Doide Shalamesim, and the Zoyar explains the difference of how we go to Kivrei Tzadikim, how different that is from the Darkei Amoiri, then you can't make that mistake.
You're talking about people who are learning, who learn the Silva, or even with the
Single people know what
the simple people.
They know what they do.
So the Rebbe gave one some mashal for this. The Rebbe said that if a person's in pain and he talks to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and the pain is in his foot, you're not going to say, "Oh, the foot is in pain. Let the foot talk to the Rebbeinu Shalom." The mouth talks for the foot. So Yois, all the Yidden are Koimach and Shlema connected. So the Yidden are asking for the tzaddikim to be a mouth for them to talk to the Rabban Shalom. But yeah, okay. Let's try to do it fast because it's already the time is short. Someone asked the Shaila last week. He does Havdalah in a shul, Motzah Shabbos, and he starts with Hine Kel Yeshuasi. Hine Yeshuasi Eftach V'Le'efchot Yoziv Zimsov Hilul Yeshua Shaftam HaMesosim Hine Yeshua Shemai Yeshua. And someone is upset about it. He says that's not our minhag. And the Mishnah Brura says you're not allowed to do it. Don't do it. So I looked at Mishnah Brura. A Mishnah Brura I didn't find, but I found the Staket true that's an Aruch HaShulchan. It's not a Mishnah Brura. It's not a Mishnah Brura, but it is a Aruch HaShulchan. Oh, yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, fine. It is an Aruch HaShulchan. Okay, true. No, not. Let me explain one thing at a time. In the last paragraph, Staket's an Aruch HaShulchan. The Rama writes, "No guloi mekodim Havdalah shoysim b'bayis hine kel yeshuasi kois yeshus esel yehudim ha'sa'oire l'simen toy." The Rama says that there's a minhag as a simen toy for that week to say special psukim before Havdalah, but he adds one word. The Rama says b'bayis. You do it in the house. So most of the places can make no big deal of that, including the Mishnah Brura doesn't think much of that diuk. The Aruch HaShulchan thought that there's a diuk here. What's the diuk? The Aruch HaShulchan writes, "Simanesh tzadik vav simches, b'beis haknes is maschilam meberchel beide pliagof v'chem balabais v'beisoi v'chom balabais v'beis maschil mepsukim l'simen toy v'atzloch v'loma ein omer meis v'beis hakneses kedei l'lamed lahamoin shein zeh ma'avdalah v'oi de kimen de amruk v'koydem v'yitan l'cho rei kvarom v'har b'psukim l'simen toy." He said, why in the shul should you not say hine kel yeshuasi? Only in the house you need a good simon, and the shul you don't need a good simon? Why are we saying only hine kel yeshuasi? Only in the house we need like Yehuda Moisa Oida v'Simcha v'Sasam v'Kor, not in the shul? Truth is, you can answer very simple because it's really the Simon Toiv that the work you'll do this week will be Batzloch. Where do you do the work? Not in the shul, but the work you do in your house, your workplace. So that's why it's shaykh to the bias. But anyway, let me just talk about the Aruch HaShulchan.
Starting the Siman Tov or Mazal Tov or Hashem Yavo Tov.
Oh, but the Aruch HaShulchan says they're only in the house, not when you make Havdalah in the shul. Why? Two reasons. One is to teach the people that this is not part of Havdalah. And so I don't understand why is it such a crime if people are going to think that Hine Kel Yeshuasi is part of Havdalah. The original that the Shechnot and the tour they bring that Amram Goyen writes to say Hine Kel Yeshuasi for Siman Toiv. Originally, Rishonim, the people had the minhag. They used to do it before, after they made the bracha of Havdalah, before they drank the wine. They used to say the psukim, and the Rishonim all said, "What? That's a hefsek. You're not allowed to do that." Whole discussion if you're allowed to do that or not. But our minhag is not to say these psukim between the Havdalah and the drinking. So in that original minhag, you could say, listen, yeah, it's very important people realize that this is not part of Havdalah. But now that the minhag is established, that we say the psukim before we start Havdalah, before Savrim Marolim and Bari Priyagofen. So what's the problem? You could say half the Tehillim. If you want to say Chumash, if you want to say Mishnah, you could say the first three Prakim of Pirkei Avos. I mean, do whatever you like to do. I mean, what's the problem? So I don't understand this first. The second reason I understand. Second reason is, he says, because in the shul, they already say V'yitin L'cha. So they already said Psukim, so it's not necessary. No necessito. Oh, there's a big difference between the nafka mina of his first and second reason. According to the first reason, it sounds like you shouldn't do it. A second reason, just not necessary. The other nafka mina is, how about a person that doesn't say V'yitin L'cha in the shul? Like minhag Chabad, that you say V'yitin L'cha. There's two minhag. One is say V'yitin L'cha before Havdalah in the shul. The other minhag is say V'yitin L'cha after Havdalah in your house. So if I'm a Lubavitcher and I didn't say V'yitin L'cha. So the second reason of the Aruch HaShulchan doesn't apply, and I need to say psukim for that's the minhag to say Siman Toiv. So then I should be able to say it. As I said, I don't see the first reason of the Aruch HaShulchan, just doesn't sit with me. Second, I understand. He says it's not necessary. So it's not necessary doesn't mean it's a crime if you're going to do it. A. B. If you didn't say V'yitin L'cha, then you should do it. So to summarize, it's a diuk in the Aruch HaShulchan. No one else picked up on it. And the Aruch HaShulchan himself, in a second reason, doesn't think it's such a terrible thing to say. He just says, it's not necessary if you already said V'yit Melacha. But if I didn't say V'yit Melacha, it is necessary. So that's why I'm going to say it. Now, I just want to talk in general about this. People overdo sometimes when they say minhag hamok. Baruch Hashem, here in Beis Menachem, we don't overdo it, and I'm very proud of that. If it's a Nusach tefillah that everyone is doing, and that's the Nusach that's kavua, and this shul they daven Nusach Sfarad, Sfardi, Nusach Arizal. I understand tefillah Samida, but something which a private person is doing. Someone a private, and the true the days of Chazal, the Shlich Tzibbi used to make Kiddush Havdalah, and that was a set thing. It's not such a thing that the shul should make Kiddush and Havdalah. It's not such a. But some shuls do it. They don't do Kiddush, but they do Havdalah. It's not part of that old takona that's brought this man. Some people, very few shuls do Kiddush, and then there's still the original minhag. And a lot of shuls more do Havdalah, not as part, but just some people that they go home and there's a family, so they want to make Havdalah for their family. Some people are going home and there isn't a family there, so they rather make Havdalah in shul. But it's not part of the tefillah in the Beis HaKnesses. It's not like a chelik of the tefillah where there's a saying Kaddish afterwards. It's not part of the tefillah. So it's not shaykh. So it's not shaykh to say that there's a minhag here or not a minhag. It's a private person that wants to make Havdalah in his Nusach. So that's if you think that it's so crime to say Hine Kel Yishuasi. But again, the truth is that no poskim picked up on it. Only the Aruch HaShulchan thought that this was a diuk. Bebeisa means bebeisa yem, bebeisa knesses not. And even the Aruch HaShulchan, his main reason was because it's not necessary. You already said V'yit Melacha. But if I want to say it. No problem. Especially if I didn't say V'yit Melacha, then for sure I should say it. Not only I could say it.
It almost sounds like that so a lot of people want to go home right after Shabbos, and people need it for some reason to hear Havdalah, and there's a fear for the tzibur. So I think that the reason is more if you don't have to, don't do it. Because there's people I need to go.
But I see that here, what I see is that it's only a deal in the Aruch HaShulchan, and according to the second reason, it's not a big deal. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, the story was that he came to town, and there was the Chassidim. They didn't manage yet to make their own shul, so they davened with the Misnah. It was in the heat of the Machloikis, and it was the night. It was night of Pesach. That we do minhag Sfarad, that we say Hallel. Very important. We say Hallel. The Ashkenaz doesn't. So the Chassidim waited till everyone left. They went back to the shul. And they were singing and sang the Hallel. Shamash hears banging in the shul. He comes running. What's going on? He sees the Choshech, the Chassidim. They invaded. The aliens are here. They're saying Hallel. What chutzpah? He runs to the Rav's house, and the Rav comes running in the shul. And there was still in the Hallel. He bangs at the table. He says, "Do steht in der Ramah." Ein onu noyagim b'medina seilu loy meralel. The Alter Rebbe smiled. Right, that's right. Right. Alter Rebbe smiled. Alter Rebbe said, "How do you know that when the Ramah was? Were you there when the Ramah wrote it? How do you know he said it like this? Ein minhag heinu. Maybe he said, oi, aval onu, oi, ein minhag heinu, oi." How do you know how the Ramah said it? How do you know how the Rabbah said it? So the same thing to the question of Hine Kel Yishuasi. How do you know that the Aruch HaShulchan said, Harois, it's not our minhag. He said there was a diuk. He said the bias, it's necessary. In the shul, it's not so necessary. It's not ma'akev, because people already said V'yit Melacha. But if you want to say it, Siman Tov, it's always good to do extra things for Siman Tov. The Eibush should help. The Klal Yisrael should always have extra Siman Tov. Okay. There's a beautiful word from the Pri Tzaddik. The Pri Tzaddik is the Reb Tzaddik HaKohen. Tzaddik HaKohen says that we say Hine Kel Yeshuasi. We say 6 times Yeshuas, and then we say Kois Yeshuas Lashon Rabim 7 times Yeshua. Why 7 times Yeshua? because there is we go around the mizbeach, and also in the sukkahs we go around the bima keneged mizbeach 7 times, and we scream Hoshayna. So keneged zeh, which is the 7 inyanim of Yeshua, and keneged zeh we say 7 lashonas of Yeshua in Hinekel Yeshuasi, and it's also keneged the 7 days of the week. That the 7 midas of Kedusha, and Uman said the 7 midas of Klippe, and we're asking the Eibishter that he should give us a special Yeshua, they should give us a special Koyach, that we should be able to be Misgaber, the midas achesed of Kedusha against the midas achesed of the Uman. And he said that's why the Gemara says in Sukkah that the Yetzirah has 7 names, Ra, Yetzirah, Sotma, Keneged, the 7 bad midas. So we're asking the Eibishter to give us 7 Koyachas of Kedusha, 7 Yeshuas, Keneged, the 7 days of the week, Keneged, so definitely it's a good thing to have an extra Siman Toiv. The Eibishter shall help him that all of Yidden should have a double measure of Siman Toiv, an extra Yeshua, and we should all have a Ksivach Siman Toiv, a Shana Toiv, a Psukkah, B'chol Min, the Meitev, B'bon HaChaim, Azoyna Revichem, B'ikah, B'bias Mashiach Tzidkein.
Yeah, but I got the view of Rabbi Mishnah.
No, that is 6. No,
The
6 times, the 6 count it up.
64.
The 6, to including Yeshua's.
Ah,
So that means it's a 7. And even the Raya Yeshua's is counted as 2. From a Medrash. Here, you want to read it inside here? It's beautiful.
I know that we have many, but we have-
because if you get to the 8,
No.
like then you get
No, no.
a small bracha.
Yeah.
People watch. That's 4. Watch.
Hills, no?
Right there. Right there. Where's 8? Okay.
Oh, so it's like, I found it. It bothered me. I looked at the Mishnah, but I didn't find it. So I couldn't. It bothered me. So I looked and I found like the Orach and Shulchan. But
We have
I really, as you see, I don't think it's a problem. Are you walking distance from here, or it's?
How many people?
Why did you pursue the shop this Friday?
Hey,
You know, my father-in-law. Yeah, my father-in-law is going to be here. Look, my father, Gil Hirsch, really wonderful. You know Gil Hirsch? You remember? Is this flowers going Kingston Avenue?
Yeah, you never bought flowers from him.
Doesn't matter. He won't hold it against you. He doesn't care about the flowers. He cares. He cares.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
In Motown, we had a.
Yeah. You're a kohen. We can give you a kois. Where's the kois?
Where's the wine?
The least picture. You watch?
Tell me what right from the start.
You were the big one.
I'll tell them exactly. There's only 8 people that are 8. And there's nobody else. You said.
I think they're big. Hensley counts for 2.
Fancy what?
They count for 2, please.
We have a kohen. We have
the kois. And you make Saladino?
That's good.
But even without interest.
We have here 7 people. Yeah. Oh, Shkoyach. Hope you can join us tonight.
Okay,
Steve v'chsim v'toiva, Shana toiva m'sukkah.
בין לכם לכם.
So the